What's up, guys? In today's video, we're going to be checking out the Bettermaker Mastering Compressor. Now, the word mastering compressor is a little deceiving with this unit because it actually has 3 different modes, and 2 of them I don't normally use for mastering. The first mode is the Bettermaker mode, and this is the most, mastering useful mode on the compressor. It's rather transparent and very good for just taking a dB or 2 off a master without imparting much of a sound. The second mode is the SG mode, and this is more for, an SSL style compression. And as we get into some examples today, we'll compare it to the UAD SSL, and you can see how close you can really get, but also with the Bettermaker, how many different flavors you can create as well. And lastly is the DX mode, which is kind of emulating a DBX 160, and it does that sound very well. And this is great for using on drums and vocals sometimes. So as you can tell with the different modes, you can use this for a lot more than just mastering. So in today's video, we'll check the unit out. I'll show you guys all the parameters, then we'll listen to it on a master and check out the SSL mode and the DBX mode on some drums. Let's go. Okay guys, so as you can see on the screen and on the camera over here, you can see the actual compressor here. I'm going to use just the plugin today just because it's easier for demonstration purposes, and I do find that the plugin is a little more intuitive than using the box. Now, I do like to use the box when I'm setting up my threshold and attack and release. It's fun to turn away from the screen and just have a few knobs, and I always find that when I'm turning knobs and away from the screen for some reason or another, I seem to listen better. And I just hear things in a different way. So I do use the box for that, but for today, we'll just use the screen. Now, it has the 3 different modes up here. You have Bettermaker mode, which we talked about in the intro, more kind of transparent mastering mode. SG mode, and you can almost tell the knobs kind of show, is more of a SSL style compressor. And then DX mode is more of a DBX 160. So you have 3 different modes to work with. We'll start off with the Bettermaker mode. And you have threshold just like anything. You have your knee, you can change your knee. This gain reduction enable, this GR range knob is actually really cool. And it's something actually they have in the Unisum plugin that, you can set the compression and the threshold however you want. But if you have this enabled, if you don't want more than 1.4 dB of compression at any time throughout the song, it won't let it go there. And that can be super helpful when you have a very dynamic song and you have this on your master bus. You don't want it to go over a certain amount of dB. You don't want to crush your master. You can set that and it will just, will stop at 1.4 dB. Above that is the ratio, and you notice here it's grayed out on the SSL. That's because there's only 3 different modes to pick from. There's 4:1, 2:1, and 1:5. Then if you go to the DX mode, you see things change. Now it's 4:1, 2:1, 1:5, but you can't do manual there either. The only time you can use a manual ratio is with the BX mode, and here you just click manual, and then you'll notice the ratio knob lights up. Or you can just stick with, the 4:1, 2:1, and 1:5. Next to that, it's your basic attack and release. This has auto on it, as well as the SG mode has auto on it too. What you will notice on the DX mode is it's locked, and that's because the DBX compressor doesn't really have an attack or release. So you can't change that, and that's just, it's standard the way it is. You can only pick your ratios with this one. To the right, we have a mix mode, which is fantastic. You can parallel compress with any 3 of the modes. I do this a lot for masters in particular. I'll use the BM mode with a mix at like 20 and just get a little bit of compression and use some of this drive and THD to give the master a little more energy, but without compressing it much. Next is the output mode. And then above that's the channel mode. You have stereo, MS, mid-side, and then dual. So, the dual is if you don't want the same compression happening on both channels, which is helpful at times for sure. Below that is a width knob. If you are in MS mode, you can actually add a little bit of width to the sides. Below that is where some of my favorite parameters are. You have drive, which adds either odd or even harmonics, and then THD, which adds some sort of a harmonic distortion. And while both of these can be fairly subtle. They do make a huge difference. And I got some examples set up with the SSL mode to really show you how they all work. Back on the left-hand side, we have sidechain detection with peak or RMS mode, which is great to have, and then forward or backward style compression, another awesome feature. Lastly, below that is the sidechain functions, and it gives you a plethora of options. You can insert it here, and you can engage either a high-pass filter or a low-pass filter, or both, right? Or you can even boost a frequency wherever you want, from 46 hertz all the way to 10K. If say a lot of times if you wanted to use this on a vocal or something, and you wanted to bring the mid-range of that vocal down a bit, or the compressor to focus on that mid-range, so that when that mid-range comes, it pushes more, you can use it like that. Or you can shape it just using the high pass and low pass filter. So the filtering options are really quite powerful with this, more so than even a lot of plug-in compressors. Lastly, like all the new Bettermaker plugins, that has this snapshot function, which I'm using extensively for these examples. I set up a bunch of different settings, and you can see these little spots where the drums are. I made different snapshots so we could hear different styles of the compressor. And this is great for if you're using this in a mastering setting where you have maybe 10 songs that you're mastering at once. You can switch the snapshot so that when each song goes, the snapshot changes with it. All right, so enough talking. Let's get into some music. We're gonna check this out on a song by my friend Trip Carter. We'll just play around with the knobs, have some fun with it. I'll show you some of the different modes really quickly, and we'll see what this thing can do.
I put my weight all on you. When things get too hard for me and I can't be strong for me, tell me come through. Just to renew before I lose it. Goddamn, so when the shit gets rough and I can barely hold myself up, you're the antidote. Fix my mental for a little, getting physical. It's a heavy head I carry, no lie. So sometimes I put my weight all on you. I can't bear it by myself. I put my weight all on you.
So that's the BM mode, and you can hear it's compressing, but it's not really imparting much of a sound. And we don't have the drive or the THD on as well. Let's now switch between this and the SG mode, which is another cool feature, is we can switch while we're playing music and hear the different styles or different modes of compression while we're changing the knobs. And it will change only the knobs in the BM mode. Then I go to SG, change knobs anywhere I want there, then go back to BM, and it will keep the settings on each of those modes.
I put my weight all on you. When things get too hard for me and I can't be strong for me, tell me come through. Just to renew before I lose it. Goddamn, so when the shit gets rough and I can barely hold myself up, you're the antidote. Fix my mental for a little, getting physical. It's a heavy head.
So you notice the SG mode's a little more snappy, kind of like an SSL, where the BM's a little more open, a little more transparent. Now we'll switch to the DX. You'll really hear the difference on that one. It's quite a big change.
I put my weight all on you. When things get too hard for me and I can't be strong for me, tell me come through. Just to renew before I lose it. Goddamn, so when the shit gets rough and I can barely hold myself up, you're the antidote. Fix my mental for a little, getting physical. It's a heavy head I carry, no lie. So sometimes I put my weight all on you. I can't bear it by myself. I put my weight all on you. And you hold it for me. You know it's shorty. I put my weight on you.
So you see we switched on the THD, and the odd and even drive harmonics really starts getting crunchy, even more so in the BM mode than the SG mode. But it just shows you kind of all the different features and ways you can take this thing to shape whatever sound you're working on. Okay, so let's have some fun with this. I set up a couple examples of the UAD SSL versus the BM SSL. And I did it with some different settings, no thud at all, then 100% thud, and then thud and drive, and then just full thud and drive. So you can see how you can get the SSL sound, but change it and either, make it way more crunchy or more kind of transparent. And at the end of this, I'll show you, you really kind of get different feels with these knobs. It was pretty impressive. One's more, you could use for a good rock song, and one's more of a laid back thing. And it's cool with compressors how you can actually change the sound and the feel of music. So let's go with the first example. The BM comp is here, and then when I switch to this one, you'll see it's the plugin. It's the SSL by UAD, which is a fantastic SSL emulation. And you'll see how close they're pretty close when in comparison. So we'll start with the plugin. So you notice they sound really close together. There might be a little more edge to one, and I don't have these perfectly gain matched, but I think they're pretty close. But they sound pretty close to the same. They both have that SSL sound perfectly. Now, next, we're going to move into the Bettermaker, and we're going to keep the same settings as we had in the first example. But on this, we're going to turn on the THD and crank it all the way and just see the sound difference there. So we'll start with the BM this time. And that's where I'm talking about. You start hearing a little bit of feel difference. It feels like the Bettermaker one with the extra harmonics. It's just swinging a little more. And then you switch back to the plugin and it's more just kind of in the pocket, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with either one. But just being able to switch that on a compressor is pretty cool. Now let's move in and dial it up even more. So now we're going to turn on the drive, and I have both odd and even harmonics, and we're just driving it like +5, right? I had to bring the output down because when you turn the drive up, it gets louder, obviously. But we'll start with the plugin again. We'll start with the Bettermaker, and then we'll switch to the plugin. So even more of a difference there. And, both of those could work, but those could both work for completely different songs. The Bettermaker would be great on a real hard rock type song. And the plugin would be perfect for, a country song or something like a laid back rock song. So just changing the compression, it's really cool how you can get different styles of sounds. Lastly, I cranked the thud all the way. The drive all the way. And when you crank it all the way, it's too loud for the output. I wish the output would you could turn it down more, but you can't. But it is what it is. So there is a volume difference for this one, but just wanted it so you guys could hear it. So kind of unfair, but you get the idea. A lot more energy on that one. It's cool how you can do that. Now, just for some fun, let's go back to the SSL with a bit of the drive and the THD all the way. I'm going to play that one for a couple times. This is just the Bettermaker. And then go back to the original one without any harmonic distortion. And it's pretty impressive, the difference of sound you can get. Really listen to the snare on the one with the harmonics. It rings longer and just it's fuller, right? So just different feels, really cool. Lastly, let's just check out, I did only one example, but this is the DBX versus the UAD DBX, which is another great DBX emulation, just so you guys can hear the difference between the two. We'll start out with the Bettermaker one and then go to the plugin. So those sound, I mean, no one's going to be able to tell which one's which in a shootout, which is a good thing. What's cool about the Bettermaker one is I haven't even touched, I have the THD at 50%, but I haven't even touched the drive. So you could make this thing a lot more, you know, grimier, distorted, and change the tone. So I love the added benefits you get with the hardware piece where you can take the original compression sound, but then push it into other directions. So that is the Bettermaker Mastering Compressor. I think it is one of the most slept on units in the universe. You know, it has so much to offer. You can do so much with it. You can use it for mastering, but then turn around and print it with your drum bus or vocals or whatever you want. It has so many different ways you can use it. And I think it's just, you know, something that doesn't get talked about enough. Let me know what you guys think about the Bettermaker Mastering Compressor in the comments below. If you do need your songs mixed or mastered through the Bettermaker Mastering Compressor, hit me up at mixandmastermysong.com. You can also find my courses and presets there too. Talk to you soon.